our reading really is kind of two readings, okay? So we're going to walk through the end, or part 3 of why Epigenies should shape up, okay? That ends right here, okay? So just these first 3.5 lines, or 3 1/3 lines, is kind of the wrap-up from the previous two readings. So, and then the second part is there's a guy who's, well, he's overwhelmed by the thought of walking all the way to Olympia. And basically what Socrates tells him is this. He says, look, if you have a Fitbit, well, I'm modernizing it. But, if you have a Fitbit, it's intimidating to say I should get, 10,000, 12,000 steps in a day. Where am I going to carve out time to walk for 10 to 12,000 steps? But, Socrates says, well, if you look at your Fitbit, and you just kind of walk around during the course of the day, you're practically there. And so this is the advice he gives this guy who's overwhelmed by the thought of walking all the way to Olympia. He says, well, if you just add up all the short trips you take during a day, you're practically there. You just kind of extrapolate it out a little bit and you got it. So we kind of have two stories, but let's finish up Epigenies. So you remember in chapter 31, Socrates confronted Epigenies with his poor, slovenly appearance. And he said, you maintain your body so unprofessionally. And Epigenies replied, well, yeah, I'm not a professional athlete, duh. But then Socrates went on to talk about primarily about war and all the bad things that can happen on a battlefield if you aren't in shape. You can get killed, you can get captured, and if you get captured, then your family has to fork out a ransom, and then you're destitute, etc., etc. And then in the previous chapter, chapter 32, Epigenies heard from Socrates all the benefits of being in shape. He says, well, you not only escape death on the battlefield, but you actually serve with dignity and honor, and you acquire glory, a good reputation. People like you, things go well, you're able to pass on an inheritance to your kids, get them off to a good start in life, and all this is because you had the foresight to discipline yourself and to keep yourself in shape. So here is the final piece of that discourse, that dialogue with Epigenies, and Socrates ends this dialogue with an encouragement to Epigenies. Now, I'm expecting either an imperative or a second singular, aren't I? Because I have a vocative here, right? Oh, Epigenies. All right, there it is. There's my imperative. This is what I don't want you to do. I could tell it was an imperative because it uses may instead of oo. All right, now, os, you know what that is. Adverb ending. Okay? Now, we've had dia plus the accusative a number of times. Amelion here in your vocab list for this particular reading. Now, here's a question. Am I expecting a yes or a no answer? New information here. Okay, what forms of the adjectives are those? Right? So, kaliston and kratiston. Now, this word right here, I want to point out, is a contraction. You're probably used to seeing seauton. Here in the genitive, your own body is the way you should translate that. Okay, so sautu is just the contracted alternate form for seautu. But what we have here, of course, is this accusative chunk with the genitive thrown in here. Okay, so remember, we're talking in the vocative, so that gives you insight into what person this particular verb form is, that ending. All right? We just had full deponents a few chapters ago. You might wish to review that. Okay? So as we come to an end, notice here you have, let me get a different pen. Notice here you have just an accusative singular neuter, tuta. Okay, remember what echo plus an infinitive means, right? And here's his concluding statement. Now, the word gar is a conclusion word. It tells you why I said what I just said. Okay, so nothing. Okay, remember what toy means as opposed to tus. So the emphasis is on quality. What kind of? Okay, automaton here, like malan, is being used as an adverb. There is the we have regular adverbs like in the first line, aiskros, but then some adverbs form with the neuter accusative singular. They do that in the comparative and superlative, but that is neither here. Automaton is just an adverb in the positive degree. All right? So automaton sounds like one of the transformers. I do apologize for the crooked text. That's just the way it's scanned. Sometimes when you're scanning big documents, the feeder on the copier, and that's the best way to do it, but the feeder on the copier, it kind of grabs them a little bit off. So that's why it's slanted, and I apologize. Too much of a hassle to try to straighten it out in this particular program. So bear with me. Thank you. Now, in the second bit of Socratic wisdom, we start out with what here? Okay, you can see what case, participle plus this. So notice there's no accent on tinus, right? Detinus. So what does that mean without an accent, right? So the road to Olympia. Okay, so the Greeks went to Olympia. There was a stadium there. It was a center of religious worship as well. So people frequently traveled there from Athens. And so the road to Olympia, that's what it is. Now, phobumenu, sure, phobeo means to fear, but don't think of it in the sense of being horrified. It's more like he's tentative or reluctant or hesitant. Okay, but now, notice the capital letter. Here comes Socrates. We got a direct quote. And the rest of this paragraph is actually a direct quote of Socrates as he's talking to this guy about taking the road to Olympia. So remember what apokrinomai means. Here. So, ha Socrates apokrineta. Okay, phobe, now this is much like what we just had above with boule. All right, so it's second person, and he's just asking him why. Okay, tamakran porayan. Literally the long going, but of course we'd say something like trip. Right, now we have another question, and it begins with u. So when you translate, you have to phrase it in such a way you're expecting either a yes or a no answer, right? What does u expect? Okay. So, yeah, okay. Now, tein hemeron, this is kind of similar to what we're going to have in reading 34, where they talk about paying the hoplites or the thranites per day. Okay? So, tein hemeron, peripatais, if you split that around, pateo means to walk, and peri means around. So, peripatais. Okay? Now, we have a couple things here that will be explained in later chapters. One of them is oikoi. It looks like a dative, doesn't it? It's what we call a directional suffix. So we do this in English like we say homeward, okay? Homeward, or forward, or toward, right? Toward. So Greek has some directional suffixes. This one, oikoi, dative. So you know that dative usually means place where, right? So at home, okay? Paroiomai just means to go or to come, right? And so here in the participle form, paroiomena. Ikaisthe is another directional suffix, to there, when going to there, all right? So here we have peripateo again, here in the participle form. It's an aorist participle, you can tell, can't you? Sas, sasa, san, right? Peripatesas, all right? And here you have it again, repeated, okay? And then all these verbs, which you should take as what person, okay? Look at all of them. Okay, they're all in common, aren't they? Right? They all are what person? Remember, we're talking in direct address. So there's an understood vocative in here, right? Why do you fear? So aristas, daipnes, anapaue, which is about the same thing as pao, right? Now in this next phrase, if you look at it, you kind of have, here's my direct object. So all the walkings around you walk around is really what it says. All the walkings around you walk around. We call that a cognate accusative, don't we? Like you fight the fight, you dream the dream, you live the life. Those are called cognate accusatives. Now, here you have, you walk the walks, okay? Now, another directional suffix, as your notes indicate, and here we have a couple numbers, right? In 5 or 6 days, hemerais, another adverb, and now another directional suffix. So here, this means in Athens, and this actually means from Athens to Olympia. Okay, so a directional suffix. This is a verb we just recently have, aphikneomai, but again, what case is it? You just have to start thinking. Just keep reminding yourself this is Socrates talking to a guy. So what case is he going to naturally use? What case? If you're talking directly to a guy. All right. Now, hadion, here in the comparative, sure, it can mean sweeter, but in a physical sense. But remember that hadis, hedaya, hedi can also mean pleasant. Okay? Make sure you catch the tense of this verb. Okay? Now, what are you going to do with this? All right? Well, here we have a parallel. All right? That helps you. This form right here, historidzain, and I have an A, so I'm making a comparison. That probably helps you figure out what form that is. If not, look in chapter 15, one of those chapters you go back to frequently. All right? Right? Here we have a comparison plus a dative, new use of the dative here, new use of the dative with these comparative forms, remember? Right? Okay, now we just have 2 sentences to go. And here the advice that Socrates says is, yeah, you can calculate out taking a journey to Olympia, but if you leave one day earlier, you can break it up even more and have a leisurely trip instead of needing to catch up and make time and wear yourself out. And that's what he means here, kriton. It's better. It will be better. Okay? What will be better? Well, here's my complementary infinitive. All right? Well, actually, it's what we call an epexegetical infinitive. And here, again, a comparison. Okay? So, what is better? Well, it is better spoidine, ente orme, than to spoidine, ente hodo. Okay, now backing up a little bit here. And so here, the advice he gives is, why don't you just stretch out the journey a little bit, and then it'll be more comfortable for you to travel. So here we have a command, right? So mekune, all right? So your notes have the definition of mekuna, but it's an imperative form. I can tell by the me. Okay, now here, new adverb form. So teron, the comparative adverb, followed by genitive of, you got it, right? Now here, an imperative as well, paroyu. So this phrase right here, okay, so journey more roads by one day. Okay, journey more roads by one day. So he's talking about breaking up the trip. So make shorter journeys by one day. That's his advice as he encourages this man not to be freaked out by walking all the way from Athens to Olympia. Socrates just says, well, just think about it in a different way. And if you do, well, you'll be fine. This ends the pre-reading for chapter 33.